Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our iOS development with UIKit tutorial series. In this particular tutorial, we are going to be taking a look at how we can store app settings in a persistence storage mechanism called UserDefaults in UIKit. So, what is UserDefaults? Well, UserDefaults is a way for us to persist app settings between launches of our applications. And it is app settings that UserDefaults is primarily intended to be used for. It's not meant for permanent storage or anything like that. If you want something that stores large amounts of permanent data, then you're looking at something like, then you'd be needing to look at something like core data or some other solution. My goodness, excuse me. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to allow the application that I have right now to persist some kind of data storage in UserDefaults. Now, what we're going to persist is the selection between parks, monuments, and state capitals in our segmented control, so we know which locations to display in between launches of our app. All right, so right now, we already have a value changed method that goes in and updates the data for the table based on which segment is selected and all that stuff. But we want to add in UserDefaults persistent storage, retrieving, and setting into the mix. All right, so before we get started, I need to talk to you about some requirements for using UserDefaults in your apps when you submit them to the App Store. When you submit an app to the App Store that uses UserDefaults on any platform except macOS, you are required to provide what's called a privacy manifest. Now, what is a privacy manifest? Well, a privacy manifest is a file that allows your users to take a look at how you use their data. So this is going to have, for example, what you're using their data for and why you need to use their data in that way. Right? Now, Apple requires that you have this stuff because they want to ensure user privacy. At least that's what they claim. Now, how do you create this? Well, Donnie Walls, a iOS developer from the Netherlands, has a very good tool for this. He had on his website, he has a tool that'll help you generate a privacy manifest file that you can then copy into your Xcode projects. Otherwise, you can take a look at the documentation for privacy manifest and required reasons APIs to know exactly what kinds of stuff goes into the UserDefaults, sections of privacy manifest and for other required reasons APIs and all that sort of stuff. Right? So there are two options. You can manually do it or have a third-party tool help you. Either way, you need to have a privacy manifest, and just make sure that you get that before you submit your app to the App Store. Otherwise, you will be denied. All right? So, how do we implement UserDefaults then? Well, let's go ahead and go into Xcode. And first, let's cover how we can save things to UserDefaults. So let's go down to the bottom of our view controller here. And above the line where we are reloading the data in our table, we want to save our data to user defaults. Now, the data we're going to be saving is a simple integer, and that integer is the current selected index, the selected segment index from our segmented control. Now, to do this, we need to say user defaults, capital U, capital D, dot standard. So the standard user defaults implementation dot set, and you can see there are a few overloads for the set method. One that takes in any, then there's set value. We're just going to say set and then provide it a value. And this value is going to be sender.selected segment index. And then for key, we need to provide it a string, because when referencing values from user defaults, we reference them via a key. And that key is going to be a string. Therefore, when we save data to user defaults, we need to use that same key to override any potential existing data. All right, so inside of our string here, we'll put the bundle ID of my app plus something else. So com.joshua.dev.tutorial app Swift, or not Swift, UIKit dot, let's say, selected index. All right. Cool. Now I'm going to copy this string because we're going to use it later. But now that we have actually set the user defaults value, we need to retrieve it when our app initially loads. So to do this, what we're going to do is above our view.did.load, I'm going to have a var selected index equals user defaults dot standard dot, and then in order to get an integer like we've stored, we need to call the integer method. If you need a string, call string. You need a boolean, call boolean, so on and so forth. Now, you might think, oh, these methods must return optional, right? Because maybe we have a value and maybe we don't. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. These actually return a default value if it can't find anything at the given key, or if it can't find the key at all. Integers, floats, and doubles will be set to 0. String will be an empty string. Boolean will be false. And then object, it doesn't really have a default value that it returns. That's one thing that object does not have. All right, we want integer, so dot integer for key, and then the key we just used. There we go. Now, if this key does not have a value associated with it, it will use 0 as its default. All right, cool. Now, inside of my configure method, above where we set the, or where we configure our category picker, our segmented control, I'm going to make sure that this 0 is saved to user defaults. So we'll say user defaults Well, actually, you know what? We probably shouldn't do that because there's no way of confirming whether or not there's actually a value there. So I'm just going to leave that alone. But what we do want is we do need to initialize our locations array. And this locations array is going to be initialized based on the selected index. So we'll say locations equals constants dot locations dot filter location in and then here we'll say if selected index. Well, actually, let's switch through that. Switch selected index case 0. Then we will return location dot category is equal to national parks, or national park, not determination. National park. Case 1. Return location, not locations, location dot category is equal to dot monument. Case 2 location or return location dot category is equal to dot city. Default return true, which will end up returning everything. Okay, so all right, there we go. Now we have our locations array initialized. I am going to change the locations array up here to not initially have a value until configure is called. All right. Cool. Now, once we have that all squared away, where we're setting the selected segment index, instead of 0, we can say selected index, like that. And then that should be all we need. Let's go ahead and save this and run our code. Come on, phone, you can do it.
Face ID. 0.
Of course it's not going to recognize my face.
9, 0. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 0.
Alright.
8, 0. Ron Pascal.
Of course.
0. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. GH 3, 2, 1, 2, 0.
Alright, there we go.
Master connected.
Cool. Now, I can screen mirror for you.
Control center. Air screen recording button. Low power mode button. Selected. Low power screen mirroring button. Screen. Roku Premiere button. Joshua's Mac Mini.
I will screen mirror on my mini here. Just like that.
Screen mirroring heading.
Alright.
Screen mirroring button.
So,
Double tap and
here we
hold to show
go.
more controls. Screen mirroring button. Screen mirroring button. Double tap.
Here's our application. It's just got to load, finish doing its thing.
Locations heading. Selected. Parks button.
We can see Parks is currently selected.
Monuments. Capitals button.
Let's say
Three.
capitals.
Selected. Capitals. 3 of 3. Cellular. 4 of 4 bars. Signals. Map pin. Image. Yosemite National Park. Locations. Heading. Parks. Button. Monuments. Button. Selected. Capitals.
Okay, so we have capitals selected now. However, the data did not reload.
Monuments. Button. 2 of 3. Selected.
Monuments.
Map pin. Image. Acadia National Park.
The data still isn't reloading. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that might be before we continue on with anything else. Okay. That is actually extraordinarily odd. Da, 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 da. So we have a selected segment here. We want to switch over that. Case 0. Okay, so it should be updating, but it isn't. Let's see. Do we have anything in the console log? No, we do not. Okay. So, I'm going to what I'm going to do is I am going to try and print locations dot count. Alright, we can save this and run it. Now on my phone here, I'm going to let it load, do its thing. Now we had monuments selected when I reran the app. So if user defaults works like we expect it to, monuments will be selected.
Status bar item. Locate Yosemite National Park. Map pin. Image. Map pin. Grand Canyon National Map pin. Image. Map pin. Map Yosemite National Park. Map Yellowstone National Park. Locations. Selected. Parks. Monuments. Capitals. Button. 3 of 3.
Okay, so that didn't work either. User defaults is not wanting to cooperate with me today, so that is not ideal. All right, so I'm going to try selecting a different segment.
10:24 p.m. Batteries. AirPods Pro 8%.
If my phone will cooperate with me.
UIKit. Locate map pin. Image. Yellowstone National Locations. Select monuments. Button. Capitals. Button. 3 selected. Capitals. Map pin. Image. Grand Canyon National Park.
Okay. So we'll go into debug area, console. Okay, so the value changed event isn't even being called. So that helps me to debug the problem. We'll go down to our configure method here. Okay, so we do not have a target. All right, so what we want then I'm going to get rid of this here. Then we will have a category picker dot add target self number selector category changed. Save, run. Okay.
32% charge.
For
Saturday, January 4th.
and then value changed. All right, let's save it, run it. Build succeeded. All right, now we're going to screen mirror again.
Select screen mirroring button.
I honestly have no idea how I managed to delete the target when I didn't want to delete that target that I had earlier
Screen mirroring heading.
before I started recording, but you know. Okay. Yeah, voiceover, I know. All right. So, here we are in our app once again.
Map locations heading. Selected parks.
Right now, parks is selected.
Monuments. Capitals.
Let's say capitals.
Selected capitals.
Okay, so now we see that our data does reload.
Sacramento, California. Map pin image.
Let's go ahead and rerun our app now. So you can see that I am rerunning it and I'm replacing it.
72% charging.
All right. So once we have done that,
Selected low power mode. Screen mirroring. Select screen mirroring.
I'm going to screen mirror once again
Screen mirror. Joshua's Mac Mini.
to the Mac Mini.
Screen mirroring heading.
All right. And here we are in our application. We can see now that
Map pin. Image. Locations. Head. Part. Mod. Selected. Capitals.
not only is capitals selected,
Map pin. Image. Montgomery, Alabama.
but our list data accounts for that selected segment as well. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.